Hi again, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Jane, and I'm glad to be here with you. I'm glad to be a host. Welcome to this episode of the ITAP Connect series, where we will bring you insights through conversations with invited speakers, as well as opportunities to exchange ideas with a community of like-minded participants and industry peers. So this episode is designed to address some of the key issues and challenges faced by stakeholders in discrete manufacturing industries and businesses. We are delighted to be collaborating with SAP in bringing you today's episode. So please join me now in welcoming Shantanu Chatterjee, Vice President for Discrete Industries, Asia Pacific and Japan at SAP, to deliver his keynote that will set the context for our following discussion today. Shantanu, please.
Thank you, Jen. Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon to everyone. Before I get started, I would like to thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity. Hello, everyone. My name is Shantanu Chatterjee, and I'm part of SAP APJ. I take care of the discrete industries for the region. In my session, I would like to touch upon the importance of Industry 4.0 in the context of discrete manufacturing and what kind of technology capabilities that you should look at in today's context. Next slide, please. Before we get into the detail, let's agree that it's an exciting time in APJ in discrete manufacturing space. For various positive reasons, investments are flowing into various markets. Apple investing heavily in manufacturing of iPhones in India. Samsung again investing in India to produce mobile devices. Tesla talking to build a new plant in India again. Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand, Philippines, investments are pouring in. China to buy semiconductor equipment from Japan. Hyundai Automotive investing heavily in electronic vehicle across APJ. Look at Singapore. The manufacturing industry is going to grow by 50% in next 10 years. That is what the official statement is from the government. It's actually great news is coming from all over. However, unfortunately, we are stuck by COVID. Next slide, please. And this has definitely has put a break to the growth trajectory. But what does that mean? That means we have to be a little more circumspective and need to continue to be more innovative to respond to this unprecedented challenge. Next slide. In our conversation with customers from across APJ, what we see that there are 5 strategic priorities that successful manufacturing companies are pursuing to win in this situation. The first one is to focus on customer, and not only customer, but customer's customer, to truly understand how market is changing, consumption patterns are changing, and how it affects the products that the customers are producing today. And when they do this, they quickly realize that products need to be differentiated much more. Segment of 1 essentially is something that we use to describe this priority. This means products needs to be built that meet exactly the need of a single customer. In an effort to do that, many organizations realize that they need to make the product more flexible by putting more digital capabilities and configuration options. Priority number 3 and 4 essentially is all about producing the product with more flexibility and accuracy. And that is where Industry 4.0 becomes so central to these 5 strategic priorities which I've just mentioned. And when you have a great digitized product, which is produced in the most optimized and effective way, then the question is how to monetize them. Should I sell it for once, or should I sell it as a service, or should I create a new platform? Should I support some new business models? And this is again, in context of Industry 4.0, it plays an extremely critical role to make all these new business models the real possibilities. Now, let's try to understand the impact of COVID on all these strategic imperatives. First, when it comes to customer centricity, what we are seeing that organizations are trying to establish direct channels wherever possible. They're tracking customers' experience more closely and are expecting reduced demand and delayed purchase decisions. This makes segment of 1 even more important since organizations need to map the changing customer demand into the new products and various options that they're talking of. Coming to digital and smart factories, products and solutions, what we are seeing is surge of remote service, network-ready products, digital twin, greater focus on virtual reality, etc., etc. Now, what does that mean to supply chain? It means supply chain needs to be more resilient. It needs to ensure more simplicity, redundancy, visibility, and it should have an inbuilt risk mitigation capability. Now, when you examine the impact of COVID on the outcome-based business models, it means more flexible monetization to allow risk mitigation or sharing. Next slide, please. However, in spite of all these impacts, as I mentioned just now, the vision remains very, very bold. Manufacturing companies, next slide, please. Manufacturing companies are looking to provide tailor-made solutions at scale and as a service. The great vision again underscores and highlights the importance of Industry 4.0, since topics like outcome-based economic, hyperconnectivity, real-time visibility, etc., they're going to become more and more important. Next slide. But the question is, who is going to win this race? Who is going to respond better in these unprecedented situations? In SAP, we believe that it is the intelligent enterprises which are going to win in this new world. That doesn't mean that organizations are not intelligent today. They, of course, are. They have happy customers. They themselves are very, very successful. But intelligence today, by and large, resides in the minds of the employees. Intelligent enterprises automate this intelligence through technologies and create capacity to focus on these new innovations. These organizations are connected both vertically and horizontally across multiple processes. They know exactly what is going on the shop floor. They also know what is exactly going on in the supply chain. On a real-time basis, they can take actions. Now that don't don't expect this organization to become intelligent overnight. It's of course is a journey and a process. Next slide, please. To become an intelligent enterprise, companies need to change many things. They need to change the mindset, which is very important. They need to change the organization structure, business processes, so on and so forth. However, one of the most important parts is to have an application and technology architecture to help them achieve this goal. Next slide, please. We at SAP have restructured our complete portfolio and we call it Intelligent Enterprise. This architecture has four main components, as you see. Intelligent Suite, this is where all the big business processes are automated. This is where we support the core enterprise processes. Then you have Business Technology Platform. This is where you have the intelligent technologies like artificial intelligence, machine learning, analytics, etc., etc. Then you have Business Network, which is a network of networks to connect your suppliers, assets, and other stakeholders to the key business processes. Next slide, please. And the fourth area, which we call industry cloud, is a constellation of agile industry-specific cloud applications developed along with partners and customers. And there are a couple of aspects to this enter architecture that I'm talking of. Those are business process intelligence, experience management, sustainability, etc. Next slide. Industry 4.0 plays a very, very significant role in our intelligent manufacturing story. Next slide, please. What we're trying to depict here is an end-to-end digital thread, which has been an eternal dream of chief supply chain officers and CEOs across the globe. The digital thread essentially cuts across multiple important processes, right from designing to production, engineering, planning, procurement, selling, delivery, operations. It essentially connects all these dots and stitches the multiple digital twins into one single thread. SAP's approach in Industry 4.0, which we call Industry 4.now, is all about how to create this digital thread by leveraging intelligent enterprise capability. Our Industry 4.0 approach is not to provide a bunch of technologies to pull data and to do some analytics, but to solve specific business problems for organization. And at the heart of this, we have a very strong foundation of Industry 4.0. Next slide, please. Which has got four major components. The first one is intelligent product. Then you have intelligent factory. Then you have intelligent assets. Then you have empowered people. These blocks are cutting multiple business processes and are supported by a bunch of technologies, which is made available by our intelligent enterprise framework. Next slide. Now, before I end my session, I would like to draw your attention on this very interesting point that I've come across a few weeks back. This is what is coming from the chief of Tesla, who is saying that I want my factory to be run like a product. Now, what does that mean? It means a ruthless pursuance of accuracy, predictability, excellence, and quality, which is only possible if you have a hyper-connected manufacturing value chain. This makes relevance of Industry 4.0 absolutely critical for the future of manufacturing, both in long term and in short term. On that note, I would like to thank you for your kind attention and would like to wish you all the best for 2021. Thank you very much.
Sorry. Thank you so much, Shantanu, for the insightful and interesting presentation that provides context for our following panel discussion. So before we do that, before we bring on our panel participants, we'd like to run a quick audience poll to get a better sense of who's joining us here today. So we have 3 quick questions for you that will take less than a minute that should pop up on the screen right now. And your responses will help our speakers know where you're coming from so that they can bring up examples or more contextual references that be relevant to you. All right, so the questions are, well, like I said, they'll ask, where are you coming from, region or country? And then what are your objectives for attending this session today? There are 4 options. And also, what are your key concerns and challenges faced in adopting Industry 4.0? All right, so quite straightforward questions. Let's take, well, 8 seconds. I'll do a quick countdown, all right? Because we'll be showing the results on screen. So 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, everyone ready? All right then. Let's see what the results are. Okay, cool. Right. So we see a lot of the people joining us today are from Singapore and Malaysia and generally South Asia. Good. Awesome. Welcome, everyone. And then question 2, key objectives for attending today's session are essentially to learn about the topic, followed by, wow, we have quite a few people wanting to hear specific individuals. So I guess we have some stars among us, among our speakers. And then finally, what are the key concerns? Cost of transformation. Okay, so this will be useful input for our speakers. Perhaps the speakers will bear these inputs in mind as when we have our conversation later, we can attend to these key concerns, all right, indicated by our audiences. All right. Okay, so let's bring on our panelists now. They are Mr. Anurag Jain, Director of and Head Industry Cloud and Advisory at SAP India. We also have with us Mr. Joseph Ting, Vice President for Digital Customer Experience, Digital Transformation Platform Center at Yokogawa Electric International. And also with us is Mr. Milind Mohan Karve, Vice President and Industry Solution Executive for Manufacturing, High Tech, and Utilities Industry at TCS Japan. And our moderator today is Ben Johnson, Lead Knowledge Analyst for Industry 4.0 and Manufacturing at BCG. We have a great lineup of speakers, so please feel free to ask them questions, again, using the Q&A forum, and I trust Ben will tackle your questions at some point during the panel. With that, I'm happy to hand proceedings over to Ben.
Thanks very much, Jane. So welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining today's session. During this speaker panel, we'll be looking at how the discrete manufacturing sector has changed over the past year. And we'll be looking at how manufacturers can leverage Industry 4.0 to not only improve resilience and operational excellence within their manufacturing operations, but also promote growth. So if we look at the past 12 months, the global pandemic, rising geopolitical tensions, they've really created a lot of disruptions for discrete manufacturers globally. Some issues that spring to mind for me are material supply disruptions, changing costs, variability in demand, even labor shortages. And this has ultimately forced manufacturers to go into a firefighting mode and really put their digital transformations on hold. So Joseph, I'm sure you've had a lot of experience over the past year working closely with manufacturers. What are some of the new and maybe even amplified challenges that manufacturers have been facing?
Okay, thanks, Ben, for the question, and hello, everybody. Before responding to that, maybe I just preface that by saying that Yokogawa, the company that I work with, is both a discrete manufacturer, and we're also a supplier of equipment and automation and control systems, meaning our customers are also discrete manufacturers. So I guess I'll provide that context. We have ourselves about 18 factories around the world, and 4 of them, what we call mother factories, are based in Japan. So let's start with the obvious, right? I think as Ben, you indicated, because of the pandemic, travel is severely restricted. And for many manufacturers, demand is either reduced or uncertain. Right? I would say that even companies, say, making masks or vaccines, are probably understand that this is a surge that's not going to, last indefinitely. And so definitely, I don't know that for us, I would not say that this has put digital transformations plans on hold. In fact, it's accelerated them as a whole. I work as one of the leaders in Yokogawa's digital transformation group. We're overseeing about 10 priority digital initiatives, one of which is Digital Factory. My particular specialty is providing a customer-centric lens to all of these digital initiatives. I'd say, to answer your question from a manufacturing standpoint, many of the problems are same or similar, but the urgency seems to be a little bit more obvious, a little bit more increased, and the way of solving them, the new technologies that we can bring, are also very different. So simply put, we're still trying to improve margins. We're still trying to reduce unnecessary inventory, reducing the complexity of manufacturing, improving lead times, and more and more improving the service experience. Now that everybody's, or a lot more people are remote, obviously more of an emphasis on remote access, remote monitoring, cloudification of previously untethered or siloed data. And so what are the technologies and infrastructure needed and the challenges around that? I think also as a manufacturer, there's a desire from our customers to provide more intelligence. I think as the speaker before introduced, how do we make our products and our portfolio more smart, more app and IIoT enabled, and building the infrastructure for our customers to do that. We also have a high level of variance across our factories. Some are low volume, high complexity, and some of them are also, we'd also do mass production of, more of a commodity type products. And so everywhere we see the need for technology and new technology and change. So it's not only a technology program, these are business improvement programs. So there's OCM, organizational change management, and potential for process improvements that we're looking at. But to summarize, I'd say we're looking to generally shift from, product shift or supply push to demand pull. And so that's the big picture and the problems that we're facing.
And as you mentioned, I think some aren't necessarily stopping the digital transformation efforts, but there's a change in urgency. And I think with urgency, there comes a need to respond to some very pressing issues. Milind, I know you work very closely with many manufacturers and offer consulting services. What are some of the better responses that you've seen to these emerging and ongoing problems that manufacturers have?
Yeah, thanks, Ben, for that. And really good afternoon, and I would say konnichiwa to some of the participants joining from Japan. It's a pleasure to share some of the experience that we have had. And the keynote speaker also talked about how the manufacturers, especially discrete manufacturers, have been impacted. We heard Joseph talking about some of the priorities that the customers of Yokogawa that he's seeing are actually looking at. What are the options for them in terms of how actually they need to respond to these problems? I would actually simplify this into 3 categories. I would say, and especially post the pandemic, right? We need to look at the employees, their safety and well-being. We need to look at the customers, how we would actually remain connected with the customers, and how we would actually explore new digital channels to reach out to customer, offer them self-service and make them more comfortable. And third is obviously your operations, which is your factories where you produce your goods. And we also heard in the opening speech that the factories need to be more smarter. The product that you produce need to be more smarter, and all that will actually enable all these 3 dimensions that we talked about. So the priorities manufacturers are left with is to see how they actually come out of this current situation, and from there how they recover, and then how they look at their growth potential. So obviously digital technology is not something new. So we are not talking about that everything that they need to adopt needs to be completely new. We have seen some of our customers accelerating some of the initiatives that they have actually been talking about. And thanks to COVID, I think this has actually accelerated much faster. So obviously, along these three dimensions, as you mentioned, we need to look at some of these digital use cases. And we call it as a framework where we say you need to first set your digital foundation right, or digital core right, by making sure you embrace cloud. You make sure your applications reside in cloud. That makes your employees access that remotely, your customers access and get the experience on the cloud remotely, and you are connected with your customer. The next would be essentially saying explore all the new different digital channels for making sure you offer that good end-to-end customer experience. And obviously in the smart factory or your operations, you need to embrace some of these new advent technologies in the form of sensorization of the machines, machine to machine interactions, making sure it is not only limited to connecting machines to each other, but connecting through a digital thread the entire supply chain, so that there is a better utilization of the technology on the shop floor. So this is how I would put at it, at what some of these manufacturers can respond to some of those problems that they've faced, and adopt and embrace digital technologies.
So it sounds like there's many potential focus areas and many potential solutions. Anurag, maybe I'll pull you into this part of the conversation. What would you say to manufacturers that are struggling to prioritize their efforts? So with all of these disruptions throughout their supply chains, a vast ecosystem of digital solutions, how can manufacturers be thinking about their transformations that they're really addressing value?
Right, good question. And I think pretty much covered by Joseph also when he was talking about the big picture in terms of how manufacturers are responding. But just stepping back on this response, I think if we roll back 6 months back, how different manufacturers across the regions were responding. They were responding to operational challenges, they were responding to budget challenges, funding challenges. But one important thing which I think Joseph also touched upon was mindset change. And that mindset change is a big thing, I think, because what this pandemic has done is it has lowered the water and you're able to see the crest and trough of the riverbed very clearly. So all while that is a reason to expedite the journey, but at the same time, it is also very important to design this journey very clearly. Now, affordability becomes a big factor here, that what is affordable by the manufacturers, and then whether they should take a complete platform approach or plug and play approach and bringing multitude of technology solutions to solve the problem. I think there are a lot of ready solutions available. And what Milind said is the cloudification or cloud, being on cloud, being cloud native is vital. But at the same time, there are a lot of concerns around cybersecurity and sabotages and things like that. The foundation lies in system engineering thought. So the whole system definition has changed. We are in the connected manufacturing world. Everything is happening simultaneously, and manufacturers have to respond to the consumer varying choices. To do this, I think what has worked well really in past, especially in the event of pandemic, is those who have leveraged the ecosystem well. Because there are a lot of innovative ideas, and if your partners can come in and apply those innovative ideas with their skin in the game, you get better solution. There is room for quite a bit of Google innovation, a lot of applications coming in from various sources which can be deployed. So it's important for an organization to define their system boundary very well, what will be the system behavior, and accordingly go in a lean fashion to embrace the digital platform, digital journey, digital transformation of their landscape. That's what I would say, Ben.
Thank you. So I guess when we think about the the broader ecosystem. I mean, as Shantanu shared before, it's more than just about these siloed use cases. You need to think holistically end to end, both vertically and horizontally. It's quite easy to get lost within that kind of ecosystem. But what would you say are some kind of no regret plays to get yourself started within that? Maybe Milind, I'll ask you to begin with.
Yeah, Ben, I think I can see a question as well related to what is possibly the low entry use case, right, around digital. And as I mentioned, that the focus is more on making sure that the employees' safety and well-being is actually managed well in this kind of a pandemic situation. We need to make sure that a simplest of workflow that can be digital workflow that can be put in to make sure that for simply indenting or doing a requisition, you are not actually ending up, going to office physically. And we have had a good experience of doing this for one of our customers just before the pandemic. The customers in Japan are more used to follow a personal seal called Hanko for most of their approval processes. So we kind of implemented a workflow solution for them that actually eliminated those Hanko and made the digital Hanko possible through the technology. So that could be possibly the entry point one can look at as the easiest that we could do to make sure that these kind of situations are managed well and you are not dependent on physical presence in the factory.
And maybe to you, Joseph, because I guess you have the perspective of both manufacturing and solutioning. What would be your kind of no regret thing to implement as of today?
I think.
Okay, Ben.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Joseph. Sorry.
Sure. I think so. I think if I can rewind just a second, I think you had to ask about priority initiatives and then what's kind of a nice use case. I think the focus of probably a lot of our audience are manufacturing or automation professionals in the manufacturing or operations part of the enterprise. As I mentioned earlier, I'm looking after about 10 digital initiatives in Yokogawa, but they're not all focused around the manufacturing part. In fact, we're looking at front office, we're looking at HR, we're looking at intranet, we're looking at all kinds of and knowledge, sharing, all different digital initiatives. And so I think it is really important to first kind of zoom out before you zoom in into the use case. And zoom out means really understanding your overall C-level business strategy, orient yourself and your digital initiatives around the enterprise perspective. Then we come to the manufacturing, or what we call the smart manufacturing perspective. There's definitely many use cases in there. The one that I see that seems to be coming up over and over again, I'm not saying this is the right one, but it seems to be low-hanging fruit, is around predictive maintenance, around condition monitoring and predictive maintenance of equipment. It's relatively simple to justify. On the other hand, in my opinion, if it were me, my preferred starting point is actually getting your arms around the data as a whole and really thinking about taking more of an enterprise and systems approach to looking at a lot of these traditional equipments, custom software, offline tools, or manual processes, and really designing a kind of a data model or a data framework or enterprise architecture framework applied to this plant environment. Another really good starting point that we see customers doing, and we're doing to ourselves, is digital maturity assessments in the plant environment. The popular one that we actually have assessed, we have qualified a lot of our consulting organization to do, is what's called the Smart Industry Readiness Index. This is something that's developed by the Singapore government and TUV. And what this does is it actually helps you. It's a structured approach to identify those use cases. And it helps you look at it technically, but also bring this to a business conversation. And that's, I think, where a lot of these use cases often don't, have difficulty scaling, is because if they're just technical and they're not strongly linked to the business case.
I think that's a really good point. And One thing that you mentioned very early there, which I think is something that manufacturers cannot afford to lose sight of, and that's the overall strategy and value. And before you deep dive onto those use cases and start thinking about deployment, you have to make sure you have full alignment and there is value there. And I think that's something that may have changed over the past 12 months. I think manufacturers maybe went into 2020 with an industry 4.0 transformation strategy. And with all the disruptions thrown at them in the past 12 months, that has entirely changed. So Anurag, I guess a question for you. As operations kind of begin to normalize a little bit, do you think manufacturers will pivot their industry 4.0 strategies?
Interesting question again, Ben. So as I mentioned earlier, that 2020 really exposed all crest and troughs. But in turn, it also gave an opportunity to change, or to at least embrace the change much faster. Earlier, I think manufacturers were highly devoted to cost, efficiency, availability, speed, but the whole game plan changed to be resilient, because the shocks that were experienced last year were unprecedented. And they were really hitting on the operational rigidity. So with this paradigm shifted, manufacturing is no more a quarantined function within the four walls of the factory or an assembly plant. So as it is getting repaired, we see that the need of bringing up connected manufacturing paradigm is becoming important. So it is important to work with consumer demand, right? So that's the whole aspect of notion of connected manufacturing, and in some way it is also as if it's a reality game happening between consumer and the engineering function, basically, which includes product engineering and manufacturing. So that is the kind of responsiveness required, as well as adaptability required in the manufacturing. We spoke about systems approach. I think the earlier speaker also spoke about it. What I see clearly is that the whole boundary definition of the system is no more contained in manufacturing. It's kind of clubbed with the entire ecosystem. And since these processes have to coexist, we have to take a design thinking approach, looking at the system and the new norm as a whole. However, looking at this long-term strategy, it has become fundamental that following pivots or following pillars will be critical. I think Shantanu spoke about digital twin, digital thread at length. We saw rapid embracement of digital thread, both for quality management, both for product information communication across the ecosystem. Digital remote operations, digital visibility of operations is becoming important. I think, Joseph, you touched on important point of data interoperability, and that is becoming so critical, especially when you have to do seamless IT, OT integration with huge amount of sensorization available in the whole ecosystem of your product, services, and the business, and then edge computing coming really pretty strongly, giving source of a lot of data that you have to ingest. Analytics, not a simple analytics, not the boardroom analytics, but connected actions basically simultaneously. I think the other thing which is very important is autonomous part. Now, whether you achieve it through automation or robotics, but the autonomous part of the vehicle, of the physical movement is becoming the key. We at SAP are also encouraging the intelligent and modular manufacturing quite a lot. So it is surmising the additive manufacturing, adaptive manufacturing all throughout. But basically, to gain resilience over rigidity, you have to have this modular manufacturing. Then the aspects of cyber physical securities and energy commercials are also critical. So again, as Milind said, that one may argue that what is new in this? But the new part in this is that it has to be real time, it has to be resilient, and it has to be connected. And that whole design that a manufacturer does has to be resilient for future, sustainable for future. Ben.
And I think with all of those things going on, the value proposition for improving operational excellence, improving resilience is very clear. One issue that many, and especially SMEs, struggle with is expanding their operations. Maybe Milind, I'll go to you now. How can manufacturers kind of incorporate a growth strategy into their Industry 4.0 transformation efforts so that maybe they can expand into foreign markets or find new market segments that they could play in?
Right, and I think that's what I also talked about, taking the clue from the opening pitch where we said there is a advent of digital thread and completely connected enterprise. Obviously, the SMEs need to make sure that they first have the connectivity, which is at the shop floor, machine to machine. At least if they're able to sense the demand and connect the demand to the manufacturing execution system, so which is traditionally we've been talking about ERP getting connected with the MES, that is possibly the beginning. And what this pandemic has taught many manufacturers is the concept of frictionless value chain, where we are talking about design anywhere, manufacture anywhere, and sell and service everywhere. So that is what actually the vision is, to establish a core which is very fundamentally strong and just not based on the traditional ERP system, but the cloud, which is the new ERP. And with that, you could actually look at connecting and having that kind of a frictionless value chain concept, where you could actually look at growing outside of your base operations. So that is very important aspect of making sure that you have your solid foundation. And we actually in TCS have kind of coined it as a neural manufacturing, which is your biological concept of neural network applied to manufacturing, where neurons, which are units of the brain, and here the brain is actually in the entire neural manufacturing is your technology, which is enabling and making sure that it is doing that job of constantly sensing, perceiving, and then sending the motor commands for muscles to function in your biological system. Similarly, in the entire value chain to function. And that's where we are talking about smart factory, not limited only to connectivity within the plant operations, but going beyond the value chain, right from the suppliers to the customers, so that you have a good sense of demand and availability to manage your operations.
So I think we've heard a lot about the solutions and what manufacturers should be doing. I guess there's a bit of a disconnect though on, as of tomorrow, how they can be doing this. Joseph, maybe to manufacturers that are either looking to restart, start, or continue their Industry 4.0 transformations after the past 12 months, where they might be a little bit resource light, whether that's financial or human capital. How would you kind of help them frame the beginning of that implementation phase?
That's a very open and tough question. I think, a company's in a different situation, right? So I think overall, the common thread is that all companies acknowledge that enhancing digital capability is a strategic imperative, both from a technology and a talent standpoint, no matter your business condition. But I think going back to the original point of aligning with, the C-level strategy, orienting around the overall business strategy. In Yokogawa's case, I'll go back to your original question. It has been more and more obvious that there's a acceleration of the shift to sustainability, to renewable energy, and to the bioeconomy. And so we're actually really pivoting, and we have been already, but really accelerating our portfolio and our roadmap towards those things. So really, I think viewing yourself, no matter where you are in the company, as just trying to zoom out and see what is the company really trying to do, and how can I become sort of an internal champion and develop, find other like-minded people to, whether it's informally at first and then maybe formally or officially later. That's what we're seeing is both in ourselves and in our client organizations, you often have sort of these task force, these self-organizing, change champions or people that are really interested in driving towards the company's direction, and that can often become more of a formal approach. For most clients that have multiple factories and ourselves, we like to start thinking about consolidating talent and developing centers of excellence globally or regionally. And so I think these are all steps that you can take. It really depends on where you're at. I mean, if you're coming in from a position of management, then you want to drive that. And if you're coming from a position of a individual contributor, then you just want to find a way to get on board that train, because it's definitely moving, I think, in all companies.
Absolutely. And I like that you raise this concept of the center of excellence and kind of driving that through a more central continuous improvement team. I think often we see many manufacturers try to run these efforts through a standalone IT team, whether they just have the operations people do it. You do really need those centralized resources. Maybe Anurag, to you, people that are trying to deploy some of your ecosystems, what are some of the best practices that you've seen?
Yeah, so I think there are some leading practices because to my understanding, best practices are kind of time bound and they keep on changing. So for example, from SAP side, we do have this innovation partners, many innovation partners. And one of the leading practices that we usually adopt is bringing all capabilities and all skills and all expertise in the game early. It is very, very important that all the partners understand the design at basics, what is happening in the basic, what is the basic problem that is being solved. And the other aspect of ecosystem is this boundary definition, who all are partnering in solving a problem. The boundary that divides them is also the boundary that joins them. And the more if we keep that boundary porous, allow osmosis of ideas, it becomes much better, much more generative, much more creative, because many of these partners can really solve the problems in a different way because they have different capabilities to see the problem differently. Having said that, it is very, very important that the whole ecosystem work in partnership model with their skin in the game. Otherwise, it just becomes kind of a vendor-supplier relationship where they provide a point solution. If it works, well and good. If it doesn't work, then they try to solve it through the different techniques. But having skin in the game, having equal partnership to the outcome is also very, very critical. And also one critical point which I would like to make here is that many a times trying too many of POCs and POTs and POVs generally make the results appear in the timeline much later on. So it is very, very important that there has to be some foundational block to the problem that you're solving, which must be addressed immediately. Then, feature functionalities, bell, whistles, etc., can keep on coming to sort out various user-related use cases, but the foundational block must be addressed faster, and entire ecosystem must kind of sign up for that.
Thank you. So I think we're very much approaching an end for the session. So maybe just a quick takeaway from each of you, just a top tip, one last message for the audience. Maybe Milind, we'll begin with you.
Right, and I've been actually emphasizing and saying that, make sure they establish a very solid digital foundation or core. Start with maybe ERP. Definitely cloud is a new ERP. Make sure that is established, and that will make your life more easy to look beyond that horizon of digital core to go next step of, probably changing your operating model, maybe partnering with the ecosystem at a later stage. So one line message would be to establish a very solid digital core and foundation.
Thank you. Joseph?
I think for me, the takeaway is convergence. I think everybody talks about Industry 4.0 and IT/OT convergence and thinks about it from a technology standpoint. But I would suggest that if you look, each person can look inside themselves and reflect and say, am I more of an OT person, an IT person? And no matter what you are, how can you find that convergence to you? How can you buddy up and find somebody to enhance your areas and become that of talent that's needed to drive this change?
Absolutely. Anurag, any passing messages from you?
Yeah, surely. So I would just pick on keywords: connected, resilient, real-time, responsive. But I think one aspect which we could not discuss much is the Industry 4.0 presents tremendous opportunities to redefine the way we do the product developments or services development. I think that is also something which we should explore quite a lot.
Thank you, and thank you all for your time. I hope it was a very useful session for the audience. And with that, we'll pass it back to Jane.
Great, thank you so much. Please join me, everyone, in thanking our speakers and moderator for the great discussion and rich insights. So let us transition now to our next segment to hear from Hajime Sugiyama, who will be presenting perspectives on delivering innovation, value, and capabilities for the path ahead with Industry 4.0. Haji, please.
Okay, thank you, Jane. Hello live from Tokyo. My name is Hajime Sugiyama from Mitsubishi Electric, and today I'm going to share my thoughts from the OT side based on my experiences about how Industry 4.0 will impact the factory floor and my thoughts about it. So next page, please. Just a brief self-introduction of myself. I've worked in automation for about 20 years. Plus years right now. I started in production planning. I've worked in an automotive plant in the USA and also worked with customers and factories in Germany, UK, also Turkey, Italy, Russia. So I've pretty much seen manufacturing all around the world. And right now it's my job to talk about these cool technologies such like cloud, big data, analytics, AI, and how we can utilize them on the factory floor. So they call me an evangelist. Okay, next slide. I joined from Mitsubishi Electric, so it's my job from the OT side to move things, drill things, and assemble things. So next slide. And I've been with my company. We have what we call this e-factory concept. So we've been playing around technology for the past 18 years. I mean, using data in the factory floor is nothing new. We've done it with the electronics industries, with the automotive industries, and we've been studying. And later I'll talk about making a lot of mistakes on how to use these cool technologies on the floor. Fortunately, we're pretty much respected and we've gained quite a name in this industry. And we were selected as one of the top 100 digital companies, and especially from the manufacturing point of view. Next slide. In the previous panel, we talked about roller coasters and fire extinguishing, and that was quite the deal these past 1 year. I mean, I was already kind of used to these kind of disasters like earthquakes and typhoons. But now we have the trade wars and now this virus hits, which made it crazier. But fortunately, we got some experience through the typhoon and the trade war. So we were pretty quick to recover it. I think one of the biggest issues and the new challenges we faced during manufacturing was demand going up and down. I mean, at the beginning, they said, okay, everything's in a lockdown, so nobody's going to produce anything. So we basically have to shut down manufacturing. I mean, 2 weeks from now, they said, okay, we have to ramp up production because we have to make these face guards and face masks to help the world, survive and protect the essential workers, to help the infected. So, and then we had to suddenly have to make these tons of motors and PLCs in order to, help out the world. So there was this up and down. So, and it's quite crazy because in the future, if you look at it, you never know there's going to be another lockdown. I mean, we've seen the light in the tunnel, but you have to be careful of how things will go. And so going to the next slide. And it's just not this, it's just all this mass customization. I mean, the customers are getting more picky and they want these customized products with a new color, with a new memory card, with their name engraved it. So you have to be flexible in order to do that. So plus all this connectivity brings global competition. So if you're not able to comply to customer needs, I'm sure in another country, there's going to be somebody that's going to be able to supply that product. So you have to ramp up your production. So going to the next slide, I think one really learning, and they have this word that's becoming a buzzword, which is dynamic capability. I mean, what you need as a manufacturer is the ability to integrate, build, and reconfigure internal and external competences to address rapidly changing environments. And that's where we totally are right now. You know, everything's rapidly changing. And the most important thing you have as a manufacturer is to be able to adapt to that as quickly as possible. Next slide. From a manufacturing perspective, the most important thing is to be lean and flexible. I mean, first thing that a lot of manufacturers think is, okay, I want to make a perfect factory, total AI, you know, total autonomous, have robots working it, predictive maintenance. But if you think about it, for instance, I have a mobile phone like an Apple mobile phone over here, but it's going to take probably 2 or 3 years to perfect this factory because there has to be a lot of engineering done. But if you look at a mobile phone, are we going to be producing this flat mobile phone in 2 years? Probably not. I mean, I was looking at the news in the morning, it's going to be a foldable. So does it really make sense to put your effort on making something that you're not going to, you know, perfect line for something that you're going to be not manufacturing in 2 years? Probably not. Sometimes you have to be more practical and think, okay, it's probably easier and better to use people to do this. So I think you always have to keep in mind that it's very, very important to be lean and flexible, because to have the dynamic capability that everybody's talking about right now, your factory also has to be extremely lean and flexible. Next slide, please. Yeah, I mean, I understand that a lot of small, middle-sized factories, kind of manufacturers, you know, panic in this mode, because I panic also. You know, you look at all this global change, you know, global competition, all this up and downs, and you know, you think, okay, can I live with this? And then everybody thinks, okay, why not try to use Industry 4.0 and let's put IoT in our factory? So I think this myself, and I also tell our engineers on the production floor that, okay, first forget about Industry 4.0 to start things, you know, because that's not your goal. I do exactly the same when they ask me advice of how to improve OT on the factory floor from our customers. Okay, first, don't think about Industry 4.0 and IT OT. First, focus on what you want to do. Do you want to, you want to improve quality? Do you want to raise your production level? Do you want to save energy? Why I'm saying that is because the data you're going to collect is totally different depending on your goal and what you want to achieve. You know, everybody thinks, okay, let's just collect all the data in factory floor and see if something happens. You know, this doesn't work. I mean, I actually tried this in 2005 on a project on our factory floor. We found nothing, basically. It was just tons of data just lying in this server, and we didn't have the cloud right now. We had to go again and say, okay, why do we want to collect this data? And what is the frequency we want to collect this data? Okay, how long do we want to save this data? We had to go through those things. And that's why it's very, very important to have a goal. You know, what do you want to achieve by using Industry 4.0 and IoT? Next slide, please. And that's why, you know, out of these 18 years and the lessons I've learned is always, you know, you of course have to dream big. If you don't have a big image of how your factory works in the future, you won't be able to start. But it's important to start small, because in our company, even in our own mother factory where we produce parts, I think we've done about more than 1,000 projects regarding IoT, big data, data analytics. And to tell you the truth, I think maybe less than 50% have succeeded. I mean, of course, you're going to get a lot of sales talk about, you know, that how beautiful everything works, but in reality, it doesn't. So, and if you're going to fail, you should fail small. I mean, at the end, manufacturing, discrete manufacturing is about making money. So it's return on investment. And you don't want to make that mistake on a big scope. You want to start small. You know, if you have a production cell, just work on that single production packaging cell and see if you can collect data, you know, see if you can use IoT in order to improve it. And if it works, then it'll work anywhere. And then you can go to the next scope, you know, next expanding your line, or maybe even copying that machine over there and get it. And also, as I said, it's speed. I mean, if you can do it with a person, sometimes the person is the most flexible asset there is. It's probably better using a flexible rather than programming an AI to that, especially for something that you're not going to production line that you're going to not to need 2 years. The interesting thing I was thinking, in the past, I was really totally focused on ROI. I said, if this cannot be achieved in 1 year, it's not worth doing it. But times have changed through this past. And as I said, even it's difficult getting people on the factory floor. So even if it doesn't make sense in 1 year, sometimes, we take the extra time 3 years saying, okay, it's going to be more difficult to get people on the factory floor in 3 years. Okay, so even though the ROI is not so good, let's put in a robot because it makes sense. And so I think, it's shifting a little well, but, at the end, always it's money and it's making money on the factory floor. So be very, very aware of that because, at the end, it's what counts in manufacturing. You can spend millions of dollars on a factory floor. If you're not improving getting that money back, why do it? So next slide. I mean, it's chaos right now, so it's only going to get worse. I'm just talking about manufacturing production floor, but now we have to connect with the supply chain. Now we have to connect with engineering centers all over the world. And as today, we also have to connect with customers. So I think one of the issues now, it's not just OT. In the past, you could just separate OT from everything, but now you have to combine OT and IT. And going to the next slide, yes, and that's why I think it's important to select partners where you can work from both sides, and that's why we do a lot of work with SAP because, we're masters of the factory floor, but we're not masters of the IT side. And there's a lot of things, including cloud, MES systems that we can use and leverage the SAP systems that are out there. Because as I said, why make mistakes by yourself when there's already people who have gone through that journey and have made that mistakes, then you can learn from the mistakes, use their technology because they've already taken that journey. So you can start halfway up the mountain. And that's why I think, I think also in the panel discussion, it's very important to select people who know what they're doing and have already implemented it and make mistakes. And that's, I think, one of the best advices I would like to give today to the crowd about selecting the right partner to do this. Okay, next page. We've done a lot of cool stuff. This is actually 4 years before in the Hanover Messe, but we've already been working on interesting things like using digital twin for maintenance, doing predictive maintenance using IoT, and even connecting these kind of things to services and seeing how we can support and serve the customer even better. The technology is already there and it's working. And I think together with SAP, we've been able to prove that. And going to the next slide. The factory is vast and there's a lot of data flowing through the factory, but there's also this big world that I'm not so knowledgeable about on the IT side. And that's where we work with SAP, leveraging their SAP Digital Manufacturing Cloud and also the HANA platform as well. So, and I think you go 2 slides ahead. And yeah, 1 more slide, please. Yes. And I think that it's very difficult, especially I saw some comments in the Q&A box for small and middle-sized enterprises to understand what you can do with Industry 4.0. And that's why we've teamed up with Industry SAP to make these Industry 4.0 showcases so we can show you how it works, with sample demonstrations, sample programs to show how easy actually technology has come and how to help you do the first step into this Industry 4.0 world with these 2 technology partners, SAP and Mitsubishi Electric. I have just a short video. Next slide. Hope it works. Looking at this demo is basically we've connected it from the
pushing the bottom of starts, then there's a manufacturing cloud starts the manufacturing order to the collaborative robots. So let me press the start.
So this is connected from the SAP EC shop. And if they place an order in the SAP EC shop, it automatically tells which product the robot should make, and everything is seamless from the vertical perspective and the horizontal perspective. And I said, it's a touch of a button. You know, this demonstration was not something that we took years to do. It was just like engineers coming together 2 weeks, and we realized it. So
you
I'm sure
can
the
see
technology
now
is
the
there.
robot is bringing the head and the covers with correct selecting over covers on the web shops. So we can prove the horizontal integration, process integration from the web shop and the ERP and digital manufacturing cloud MES systems, and also the vertical integration from the shop floors, collaborative robots, and digital manufacturing cloud vertical.
Okay, so if you want to see the full video, it's on the web, and I'm always here to help you learn about my mistakes, my many mistakes I've made in the past, but also cool and it's interesting technologies I'm doing now. I'm doing cool things like we have a 5G lab installed, so I have my own antenna we're working with, connecting with PLCs in the cloud, and so it's cool. And I'm sure there's a lot of things I can share with you so we can make the world better together. Okay, I hope I'm just in time, Jane, and that's the finish of my presentation, and hope everybody keeps safe, and we can see you again in the near future. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Hajime, for the very engaging perspectives and for keeping it real. Okay, so next up, let's hear from Matt Chan, Global VP for Digital Supply Chain at SAP, who will speak on design in the new economy and the end-to-end digital thread. Matt, please.
Thank you so much. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. So this is Matt. So in the next 10 minutes, I would like to share with you the design in the new economy, right? So because I saw there's a Q&A, some people ask, what about the product development together with Industry 4.0, right? I think this is a topic I would like to share with you because right now, through this pandemic, you see the design is changed and all the design process, how we fit into this new economic, right? And the whole idea is the design together with Industry 4.0, and the purpose and objective is how we create the productivity, profitability, and the sustainability. So moving to the next one, I grabbed one chart coming from the Gartner reports, and this is like 15 years ago, right? If you look at the chart talking about the product life cycle cash flow, right? So if you look at the red line, right? So originally that we invest the cost, invest the money to do the product development. So we spend the money to do the R&D and research. And after the product launch, then we start earn the money and have the revenue, and it grows our revenue on the peak. And then at the end, the product phase out, and we will go through the next generation product. And if you look at, there are lots of companies looking at how we become from the red line to the blue line, right? So there are a few points. Number one is how we select the right product to go to market, right? Because at the beginning, there are so many different ideas, how we select the right product, right idea, and start to build the product. And second point is how fast we can go to market, right? Because once we faster than our competitor, we can earn more money than our competitor. And once the product launch, and there are lots of topics in terms of how we increase our quality and how we reduce the cost and supply chain risk. And at the end, we really care about how we reduce the services and also the warranty cost. So these are the 5 key pillars. And if you look at the bottom side, this is the entire product life cycle phase, right? Start from the concept, development, and prototype, MPI, then volume, and also phase out. So later you will see this is actually, we call the digital thread. And within this digital thread, it will include all the core value chain and all the core department in our organization. Start from the product development team, the engineering side, and then hand over to the manufacturing, hand over to the supply chain, and also hand over to the services side. So before 15 years ago, everybody is looking at this picture, and they want to solve these 5 top issues. But each topic is quite silo and standalone. They finding the different solutions to focus on these 5 topics. And coming back to today's situation, let's move to the next one. At the beginning, I believe Centennial also shared with everyone, like today, this scenario is totally different because before we talk about the mass production and have the life cycle is longer. But right now, if you look at these 5 pillars, customer centricity, you need to understand the customer requirement, customer demands, then you start to build a product. Otherwise, the product you build is the wrong direction, then you lost all the money, right? So that's the number one. And then at this moment, there are lots of we call the segment of one, because lots of customers would like to have a unique product, configurable, and also personalization, right? So which means your business need to support like engineering to order, config to order, instead of before it's make to stock. So once you have this kind of differentiation at the beginning, you need to think about how you design to support this configuration, and think about how you design to support those personalization product. And then hand over to manufacturing, supply chain, and deliver, and the installation services all are linked together because the product is different. Then all the following process will totally be changed. So it will also link together like the following process, like how we build a smart product and how we have a digital supply chain, smart factories. And more importantly, I think most of our customers heard about the new business model because we already have lots of customers. They change their business model before they sell the machine. But right now they think about how we sell the solution, how we sell the services, or how we sell the usage based kind of concept to charge to the customer. So these are all different kind of a flavor already as an input into the entire product life cycle. So that's reason from SAP perspective, how we bring the Industry 4.0 and give the entire end-to-end digital freight scenario. Let's move to the next slide. So I think this is also linked together back to our topic, Industry 4.0. When we talk about Industry 4.0, it started from 10 years ago. And at the beginning, we talk about smart manufacturing, smart factories. And within these smart factories, there are lots of topics around, please click one by one. There's a lot of topic about the robot AGV, how we connect with those robot AGV, how we collect those data from the PLC, OPC, and also how we use the IoT and machine learning to do the predictive quality. And of course, there's a EHS, very, very important, how we have a social distance, how we have the sustainable environment to support our manufacturing area. But before we build a product, we need to think about how we link together with our demand and our sales order, because all those demands coming from the sales side, from the our planning side, right? If we cannot build a product at the right time, and the more product we build, the more loss we have. So that's the important how we connect with the sales and planning. And before sales and planning, all this information, the master data, the BOM, the structure, and all those design documents coming from the design phase, coming from our R&D. And those R&D start from collecting the customer requirement. Again, this is back to our previous slide, say, customer centricity, right? You need to understand your customer requirements, understand the market insight, understand the feedback and experience from your customer. Then you can collect the input and the ideas and start to do the design. And during the design, there are lots of resources, there are design partner, and also you will have lots of document, 3D model, and then also create lots of master data and BOM. And between design and manufacturing, this is so important because you need to make sure all this design data hand over to your manufacturing department. Because during this process, there are lots of change happen. And there are lots of different versions that and different source of data. Then it will make your manufacturing process and make lots of error and mistake during the manufacturing process. And after the manufacturing, you will start to deliver the product through the logistic and delivery. And I believe that during this COVID, there are lots of constraint about the logistic constraint and bandwidth. So how you have a better planning, logistic planning, and transportation planning. And once you send the product to your customer side, there are another topic, say, how I create the new business model. Can I sell more services? Can I sell more spare parts to a customer? And then there are lots of topic around digital twin, how I connect the census data back to our company, and how we do the analysis and use machine learning to provide a predictive maintenance services to our customers. So these are all together, and the thing about how we provide the new business model and services to our customer. And nevertheless, you saw the network in the bottom side. The reason we highlight that, if you look at the traditional design, sales planning, manufacturing, logistics, and the operation, so these core processes sit inside the organization, and we only have the internal insight. And right now, once we through the cloud, through the network, we can collaborate with our design partner. We can collaborate with a supplier, logistic partner, and also service provider. Why this is so important? If you click to the next. Those are management KPI. Have another 3 click. Revenue, how we secure revenue, how we reduce the cost, have increase our cash flow, and also the new business model. And think about these new management KPI cannot be solved just one single solution. It link together, it link all the process together. And that's the reason we would like to provide this, we call it design to operate solution to support our industry 4.0 kind of a journey to our customer. And through the design phase, this is so important because design, it provides all the source data going to the supply chain, going to the manufacturing and the services. So in the design phase, we do partnership with Siemens. If you go to the next slide. We have a Siemens partnership announcement last July. And through this partnership announcement, we bring Siemens PLM, Product Lifecycle Management System, into our design to operate portfolio. So if you remember this, the previous slide is talking about design to operate end to end. Now we bring Siemens PLM solution from the beginning, from the design phase. So once we have this global #1 PLM solution, then we will build this design to operate process much stronger, right? And if you look at the whole idea is how we create those information connection between design to supply chain, design to manufacturing, and design to services. And this is the area we try to help the customer to create a single digital thread. And if we move to the next one. So when we talk about digital thread, I believe this is the core and the foundation how we support our new business model and new business process in the future. And think about all on this digital thread, all the departments are looking at the same data, right? Supply chain looking at the same data as the R&D, as the manufacturing department, and also the services. So it will make our organization much flexible and also can be resilience, right? So you can do it quickly to change and be dynamic. So I think this is a quick update on how we bring the design in the new economy and also link together with Industry 4.0. So moving to the next, the last slide I have is, because today we only have 10 minutes and we would like to share more information with you through this masterclass series on 2nd to 4th March. So we are going to talking about end-to-end, like I mentioned, from the design to supply chain, manufacturing, deliver, and operate. So each session we will have a 1 hour kind of a deep dive session and to provide you more detailed information. With that, thank you so much. Hope we get some questions and we can move ahead. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Matt, for your rich perspectives. I'm afraid we've come up to time for today's session. So thank you to our audiences for the questions that have been streaming in. So please join me in thanking all our speakers and moderator today. We hope you found the session interesting and helpful. So please give us some of your feedback on this session by completing the audience poll, which will be popping up in front of you. And for those of you who wish to review today's session, a recording will be made available on our ITAP Connect website soon. In the meantime, do let us know if you wish to reach out to any of the speakers. And also, please watch out for our next episodes in March and April, when we'll be tackling new topics related to Industry 4.0. Thank you again all for joining us today, and we hope to see you at our future episodes. Have a good day.